Welcome to episode 1 of P is for Punk, a show where we go A to Z through punk's defining records and some underground records that you might not be so familiar with, and talk about why they matter, why we love them, why we listen to them to this very day. Today, we got to start with the letter A. And what better way to kick things off with one of the most famous punk albums of all time, Rancid's and Out Come the Wolves.
Maxwell gets us in hell. This one you've been so near. Same old game that he's playing. His souls are never fair. Nobody wanna look back. Everybody wanna get out of that right.
Maxwell Murder, the opening track of Rancid's and Out Come the Wolves, a powerhouse of a song that if you don't fall in love with it in the first 30 seconds, I really don't know what to tell you. So we're jumping into Rancid's discography a little bit, and Out Come the Wolves, one of the most famous albums of all time in the world of punk rock, so much so that it's inspired the writing of a movie of the same title that will be coming out in 2025. This album, set in 1995, is when it's released. The third album from Rancid, kind of during the time where punk rock really blew up a little bit. Green Day released Dookie. You had The Offspring getting a lot of radio play with their album Smash. And it's kind of an underground type of sound colliding with the mainstream, which a lot of people didn't necessarily like. People think of Green Day in 2025 and, oh, they sold out. They're doing all these tours. Same thing with The Offspring. But really, it was just kind of their time. The 90s, the mid-90s were the rise of the punks, at least in the radio world and the mainstream world. And I don't think that's anything to be ashamed of. But Rancid, they got the deep roots in the East Bay scene. This is their third album, and they're really kind of like punk rock royalty, believe it or not. It's a band that I love very, very much. Of course, they formed in 1991 after the breakup of Operation Ivy, another legendary ska punk band in their own regard. Formed by Tim Armstrong, Matt Freeman, Lars Fredriksson, and Brett Reed. They released 2 albums before this one. 1993 self-titled Rancid, and 1994's Let's Go, which got them a little bit of traction with their song Salvation. A beautiful song indeed that everybody should listen to and everybody should like. They were signed to Epitaph from Brett Gerwitz's label. Of course, he is from Bad Religion in recording form only. He no longer tours with Bad Religion, but he still throws some licks down on the old guitar. Good stuff, if you will. So it was released August 22nd, 1995. Producer Jerry Finn, who has worked with Green Day, other mainstream artists like Blink-182. He's worked with a million people and has done some pretty awesome things. It was an immediate hit in Out Come the Wolves. Went gold, and 3 singles got MTV play. So this is where the critics came in full force, and people didn't necessarily like what was going on. You know, and back in the day, and still kind of to this day, to a degree in 2025, punk rockers seem to be a little gatekeepy, if you will. They don't like it when bands that they love get a little more well-known and get airplay via mainstream avenues, having their videos played on MTV, having their songs played on the radio, having their songs incorporated in a soundtrack depending on what film it's being used for. People really don't like it. They go, oh, you're losing that edge. Like you said, you can't conform to the man and all this kind of stuff. But realistically, what it comes down to, 1, people enjoy the punk rock sound, which is good. And 2, if you want a band to be successful and you want a band to keep on going, a lot of times they do gotta make some money. Sure, there's plenty of bands that are still slumming it, doing the van life. There's nothing wrong with that. It's enjoyable and they still put out great hits, but you know, I mean, I'm impartial really. As long as they stick to what they're saying, I'd rather be giving millions of dollars and a ton of money to some of the people in the bands that I love rather than a certain other artists who don't really write their own music, but that's a whole different topic. Back to what we were discussing. Maxwell Murder opens with that Matt Freeman bass line right away with one of the most iconic bass solos of all time. It's a short song, but it is packed with everything that you could possibly want in the world of punk rock. An instant hit. If you throw on a record on the A side, you need that first track to draw you in, and Maxwell Murder most certainly does that. Roots Radicals, also a song that found a lot of success. A little love letter to ska, punk history, mentions of Jimmy Cliff, and like kind of like 60s, 70s ska era, if you will. It's a little bit different sounding than Maxwell Murder, which is nice. So there is some variety. And then we kick it to Time Bomb, probably their most successful song on this album. This is the song that gets so much airplay on the radio. You can hear it. It's pure ska punk. It's catchy. It's radio friendly. And it's definitely the biggest hit off of this album. That's just so good. And I will say this, there is no miss on Out Come the Wolves. The album is just so good. It can be hoisted all the way up to near the top of the pinnacle of punk rock albums. I'll say that. Back-to-back hits. Ruby Soho, melodic, heartfelt, and another very iconic track. The video accompanied it as well. And Olympia, WA, kind of that DIY scene in the Pacific Northwest. Scene-to-scene comparison type of anthem, if you will. So really, they haven't strayed away from their punk rock roots. They talk about the working class, problems that they've had, friendships, punk community, and, you know, like the street life, if you will. The punk scene was a lot different way back than what it is now. You had riots at shows. You had people getting in massive fights, a lot of violence, a lot of sketchy behavior. But the sound was there. I love the punk rock sound, and I'm happy to have grown up in the scene that I did, because I don't know that I would have been able to handle it, to be honest. I've heard some things, especially out in California. But when we're looking at their previous work, so third album, and Out Come the Wolves, Let's Go, the album right before that was a little more aggressive, less polished, if you will, a little more grittier, and a lot of people do like that aspect of it. It has that raw punk sound that you don't necessarily find 100% in Out Come the Wolves, which people get a little bit angry about. The purist selling out. But I would say like the authenticity, I can't think, authentic. How do you say that word? Authenticity of the lyrics and everything was, they're solid. They're good. So this album put Rancid in the big three of 90s punk, along with Green Day and The Offspring. Believe it or not, Billy Joel Armstrong was supposed to be in Rancid. He was supposed to be a member of Rancid. It didn't necessarily work out. They did write songs together that Rancid plays. So there is a little bit of a connection with that. They went on tour with them in 2024. Green Day, Rancid. I think the Smashing Pumpkins too. I could be wrong about that. But they were in the big three. So they were aligned with Green Day and The Offspring. And I will say this is probably one of the best gateway albums for people to kind of start. You know, if someone's like, hey, I want to give old punk rock a try. What do I do? Well, you start with Rancid and Out Come the Wolves. Maybe you can begin your journey with a Green Day album. Maybe you could start maybe with some early Blink-182, if you will. But if you really want to like get the heart and soul of what punk is, I really think it's an Out Come the Wolves. I do. So that would be an album I would start with. Kids. It's a good one to dive into. And then just move on from there. You'll find some more less polished albums. You'll find grittier albums, and we'll get to a lot of them. Well, you know, we're starting with A, the letter A. This is episode number 1, and hopefully we get a better format and we get a better way of doing this show. But yeah, it's awesome. It's influenced a lot of people out there to do some pretty awesome stuff, and they're still going. I will say, like, people have also said albums have fell off since In Out Come the Wolves in the world of Rancid. But it's strong. The artwork, of course, paying tribute to Minor Threat. And so much so, I would say the artwork for this album is so much more influential and so much more iconic that people don't even realize that it was a tribute to Minor Threat. And that doesn't take away from anything Minor Threat has done. They're great. They have their own staple in the punk rock community, the more so the hardcore punk community. But this cover, black and white picture, Rancid in red. You got, I believe that's Lars leaning forward on the steps. And that's what it is. It's a gritty picture, and it's super, it's just rad, and it's iconic, and it's awesome. And I love it. I like that they've thrown, they kind of like throw the bone at Minor Threat and be like, hey, without Rancid or without Minor Threats, you're not going to have Rancid, which is nice. It's nice to give that a little bit and to keep it in the family, if you will, to that regard. So the album as a whole is packed with 19 songs for a total length of 49 minutes and 39 seconds. There was some remastering that went down in 2015, so 10 years ago already, that added 2 more songs, Blast 'Em and That's Entertainment, to give the album a total length of 53 minutes and 39 seconds, which, considering the number of songs, is still a pretty short album for all that you're getting. Majority of the vocals are shared by Fredrickson and Armstrong. It's good when they go back and forth, but you get a lot of melodic, just great sound on this album. Matt Freeman has one of the weirdest singing voices of all time. It kind of sounds like a hardcore Kermit. That's really what it is. But that adds to the layers of how awesome it sounds when you got 3 vocalists singing together and just sounding pretty awesome. I think this was like around the time where people were like, it's okay to be melodic in punk rock. You can have that. I mean, Bad Religion has been doing it since essentially day one. They've had melodies, they've had harmonies, and that's a good thing. That's a good way of doing it. People still like when things sound well. Tim Armstrong doesn't have the world's strongest voice in a standard singing situation. He's got a unique voice. He's got a weird accent, if you will, but it's still pretty awesome, especially when you throw some harmonies behind it. Looking further at it in the world of albums as a whole, it did reach the Billboard 200 at number 45, which is pretty solid. Like we said earlier, certified gold. Took till 2004 for the album to become platinum, which is awesome. I will say Time Bomb was the first song that I have ever heard from Rancid. And I thought it sounded awesome right away. It was iconic. And I was like, oh, what is this? I forget who really showed me the band, but I listened to the album and I fell in love so much so that's where I started. I know there's 2 albums before that, but I do not listen to those nearly as much as And Out Come the Wolves. And it was really a great gateway for me into the punk rock world. Especially, I was a kid who was growing up and I listened to Blink-182 like a ton. A lot of kids in the 90s did, and that's all right. I know people used to give me a lot of flack for it, but it doesn't matter. It was fun. It was good and melodic in a sense as well. So going from Blink and then like going into this album and hearing all of these things that I like, the things that sound good, it's a great way to do it. It's good for the radio. And if you know me, I do radio. So I like that. I like bringing it into the world. I need more people to listen to Rancid. I need more people to enjoy the music that I like. So then, if the one other person that likes the same music that I like can't go to the show, I can at least reach out to some other people and I don't have to look like a loser when I go. That's just what it is. So I don't know if this is going to be the same format for this type of thing. This is a podcast I've been throwing out there in my brain for a while. I would like it to be more so of like a half hour type of format. I don't know how I'm going to get there. It all depends on the album. All depends on what I can talk about, the legacy, this and that. I mean, there's so much more to say about Rancid as a whole. Since then, they've released a million albums, a ton of them. Some of them don't have the greatest reception, and some of them do. So after And Out Come the Wolves came Life Won't Wait from 1998. And then they had another self-titled album in 2000 called Rancid. Some people call it Rancid 2000 or Rancid 5, being their fifth studio album. It's a little confusing when your first album is called Rancid and then your fifth one's also called Rancid. Confusing. Indestructible after that. Let the Dominoes Fall from 2009. Honor Is All We Know from 2014. Troublemaker in 2017. And Tomorrow Never Comes from 2023. They have maintained their membership for the most part, adding one drummer along the way. Branded Steinekert, something like that. They took the drummer from The Used and they put him behind the kit for Rancid, which in my opinion was a good move. The Used, of course, they have their spot in there wherever in the scene, but Rancid is much better. It's got to be much better. Originally, they started more so with Tim and Matt Freeman and Brett Reed. They did add Lars in like 94. So I guess technically 91 is when they started. Good stuff, though, nonetheless. And Out Come the Wolves, one of the greatest albums of all time. If I would pick my 3 top favorite songs from this record, Time Bomb's going to be on there. I like She's Automatic, and I also like As Wicked. Now, those ones don't get as much radio play. Those ones don't get as much love as the rest of the album's songs, but they're still pretty freaking good. They're all great. They're all great. To a degree, I kind of lean more towards Lars's songs when he takes the lead vocals on this album as opposed to Tim Armstrong's, but they're all very good. They're all amazing. And if I could play the whole album, I would, but I can't because I'm pretty sure that's against the law in podcast form. There's weird rules. I don't really know, but maybe along the lines we'll figure it out if people are receptive to this. If there's an album you would like me to break down, we don't necessarily have to go in alphabetical order, and we can kind of be loose with it. So A is for And Out Come the Wolves. B could be for Bad Religion's name of album, or it could be Blink-182's name of album. C could be, Circa Survive, if you like them, and their name of the album. Doesn't always have to start with the album. It's more of a gimmick, more of a loophole. You know what I'm trying to do. You see what I'm trying to do. Hit me up with some albums that you enjoy, that you like, and you would like me to talk about. Give a little history of it. What else could we do? How else could we format this? I don't know. I just love punk rock, and I want more people to listen to it, and I want everyone to be woken up in the world of this. I guess that's it. Episode number 1. P is for punk. Nothing is perfect the first time you give it a shot. I think it's kind of fun. I think it's good. Maybe next time I'll go track by track and and then deep down a little bit more. 19 songs is a lot to cover. It'll be easier when there's like only 10. Something like that. So I appreciate you hanging out. I appreciate you giving this the thought, giving it the time. I love this very much. I don't think Rancid has sold out, even though they have gone on massive stadium tours. I'm all for it. I like it. Take it for what it is. Just because they sign on the dotted line for millions of dollars, if that really happened, doesn't mean they've lost their sense of self. You and I would both sign a contract for $1 million if we got to continue doing what we love to do, but make more money at it. Sign me up for that, bucko. I would do it in a heartbeat. So that was A is for And Out Come the Wolves, the ultimate punk rock record, in my opinion. One of them. My opinion is very fluid. It changes depending on the day, I guess. But one of the best ones out there. Great way to kick off the show. Next time, we move on to the letter B. What's it going to be for? Hell if I know. We'll find out eventually.